so you know what that means.
Tom.
Anyone? Okay, Bob. Yeah, we're winning fist bumps, so we are looking forward to talking with you guys today. We have a special guest, Bob Britton. He has been, it feels like he's been on the show since we started, honestly. We see him over here in the comments all the time. He's got great input on the show, and we love the feedback and the interchange. So, but we just want to let everyone else know, anyone else that's in the comments, we love to hear from you. We will definitely put on the screen and discuss it with you and just have part of the conversation. So we'd love to have that. So Bob.
Not definitely. I mean, have a good comment, and then we'll put it on the screen. You just
sure. If you say hello, we might not, but if you got a question, we almost always grab the questions.
We do for sure. Hey, Bob, good to see you this morning.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, wow. I'm excited for today. I mean, when there's a title, Daniel, of navigating tectonic shifts, I mean, doesn't just make you think we got to pay attention. It's, I grew up in California. We were always prepared for the big one, of the big tectonic shifts and the big earthquakes. So
when is that going to happen? What if California going to fall off into the ocean? That's my question.
Gosh. I remember in kindergarten and first grade doing earthquake drills, and it was the big one can happen any day. Yeah.
So you actually felt some? I mean, I've never actually experienced an earthquake.
One of my favorite. I've got two really good earthquake stories, but my favorite one was my senior year of high school. It was first period trigonometry class, and I decided it was more important to go get donuts for the class instead of actually stay in class. So I'm walking out to my car, and we had an earthquake, and it was a roller. Earthquakes either roll or they shake, and it was a roller. And I watched our parking lot roll right at me. I mean, the pavement just went. I mean, it just rolled, and that was a trip.
Back up. You were getting donuts for your class?
Yeah.
You had read Winning Friends like at some point, like early in your life, I guess. Is that part of like the whole concept of making everyone happy and making friends around you?
It was more of the fact that I hated trigonometry. I wasn't very good at it. And Mrs. Boatman, God bless her, she put up with me. I would go in and I'd get up and I'd say, Mrs. Boatman, what kind of donut do you want? She's like, Brandon, sit down. We're not doing donuts today. I go, no, I know that you like maple bars. So I'm going to go get you a maple bar. What else does anyone else want in the class? And people would give me like 50 cents, I'd be like, and I took orders and then Leonard, who was we called him our narc. He was like our security guard. And I knew him so well that I would get off campus when I wasn't supposed to. And it was kind of fun.
Yeah. Sorry, Bob. We're like totally just interviewing Brandon at this point. I think we're going to talk to Bob today, though, if that's cool.
Let's talk to Bob. He's more exciting. AI and the future of sales, tectonic shifts.
For sure. So, Bob, do you want to just take a minute just to introduce yourself? Tell us what you're doing, background, and all that for everyone listening.
Sure. I've been in sales in one form or another for 30 plus years. So I've been around the block once or twice. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm doing enablement, which a lot of people don't really understand. A lot of people equate that with training, but it's really not. Training falls under enablement, but for the most part, enablement is about looking for friction in organizations that's slowing down top line revenue generation. And, that friction can come from anywhere, either inside the organization itself or from the friction that the customer is experiencing while they're trying to interact with the company. So that's what enablement is really all about. And it's a matter of trying to really just help companies unpack that. How can they simplify things? How can they get their processes down to a point where they're operating more simply and effectively and efficiently? Because you have to do all of that before you can scale. A lot of people try to scale before they get all those other things lined up, and it just goes south on them.
Cool. So I know that we talked pre-show, or I think last week, about the idea, because a lot of people say seller enablement, buyer enablement, and this is probably, I'm going to be learning more from the two of you than anything else. So when we talk about AI, I can put in more there, but that's interesting. So you just use that term enablement for that in general.
Yeah, I mean, there was a shift toward revenue enablement because, after the enablement professionally became a thing back in 2016, maybe a little bit before that, the word enablement wasn't even in the dictionary around 2016. It's that new a profession. But a lot of sales trainers started to call themselves enablers, but training is very tactical and enabling is very strategic. So, for that reason, the C-suite was kind of being disenchanted by the results that they were getting out of sales enablement because it was the same thing that they were getting out of training. Just weren't getting the results that it was promoted to be. And so they changed everything, the wording around a little bit to be more of a revenue-focused type of profession than just a sales profession, because the whole world of sales is changing right now anyway. What people define as sales is, you ask 10 different people what it is, you're probably going to get 6 different versions of what exactly sales is. So,
gotcha. That makes sense. So, I wanted to talk about, or we're going to talk about AI, right? So that's kind of the subject of the day, and definitely what we want to discuss today. So, how do you see with those changes? How do you see AI fitting into that? Or I guess, what does that mean to you, even?
Well, and AI being a tool, okay. So the interesting thing about AI is that, first of all, I can't log into any kind of a webinar, have a conversation with somebody without AI coming up. Okay, so it definitely is one of the hottest topics I've ever seen in my life in terms of everybody just kind of glomming onto it. But what's interesting about AI when it comes to sales is that everyone's trying to use it to improve their efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
But whether it's effective or not is something that we don't quite yet have a grip on, right? We know that it definitely increases our efficiencies in the sense that we can do things that used to take us sometimes weeks or months. Now we can do it in hours or minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, it really does help a lot. But in terms of whether it's something that the customer actually wants, that's something different. And we aren't really there yet, but we're getting there to the point where the customer is starting to really start to understand what AI is and how to leverage it. Once that happens, once we get the selling company and the customer both using AI, then that opens up. That's one of those tectonic shifts that's going to wind up happening.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, go ahead, sir.
No, I was just going to say, I'd love to. First of all, Bob, we met. Was that 2018 at Sales Enablement Society in Dallas, the first big conference?
Yeah.
In the whole sales enablement, buyer enablement, revenue enablement, whatever enablement space has changed so much in that short period of time. I mean, we're pushing 6 years, which used to be 6 years was a long period of time. And I feel like this 6 years has been really, really short. I think I want to keep going into this where AI is going to influence enablement. And you've said a lot of really interesting things there. You talked about it's supposed to help us be efficient, but will it actually make us efficient? How do you think companies should be at first looking at this landscape before we dive into the landscape and talk about some areas we think it'll help with buyer-seller interactions? How should companies be approaching this? Because you just said AI, you've never seen a topic like AI come into any era as fast as AI has. What's your advice for companies in even addressing AI?
Feather the brakes a little bit. You really need to, when it comes to technology like AI, we move so fast. I mean, all technology moves fast. It evolves much faster than human beings evolve. But the problem is that we are moving so fast that we move from one iteration to the next without letting the first iteration actually mature so we can understand what it does. We don't understand. Right. We understand all the pros of it because everybody always say, "Oh, how can I use this better?" But we don't take the time to let what we just created marinate, so we can understand what the negative aspects of it are as well. So it's one of those deals where we need to.
Do we have time for that though? I mean, I'm asking that question thinking there's a lot of people asking that question. Do we have time to really let it marinate? And is that really the wise thing, which I think it is, but
If we don't, then something's going to creep and bite us in the butt. Okay, so that's why it's so important for us to step back and take a look at things and say, okay, well, what are the negative aspects of it as well? The way it's being promoted right now, AI in businesses, is just all, it's Pollyannish, the way that people are approaching it. And it's just something that I think that we just need a balanced approach to it. I'm certainly not anti-AI, not by any long shot. I'm not a Luddite. I'm usually one of the early adopters of any kind of technology. But this one just kind of said, okay, the implications here and what it actually is doing is almost antithetical to what businesses are supposed to be doing. So I'm a little leery about it.
okay, I want to know what you mean by that, and I think I'm gonna preface it this way, Daniel, if you don't mind, let me indulge me a little bit here. I think with AI right now, and this is my opinion, love to hear what anyone else wants to add to the conversation. But Bob, what you think is, I believe, over the last decade ish, it seems like all the marketers went to the same school online and learned how to say, we're gonna tell people what our product does for them as an outcome in these grandiose fashions to get people excited, right? That's why so many tools were sold as the easy button. Oh, it's so easy. You just put all your names in here and press go, and these email campaigns go, and you get leads coming to you, right? That type of language. And I'm watching that being applied to AI right now. And on one hand, it pisses me off because we're selling these Pollyanna views of like rainbows and unicorns if you just buy our product. But it also worries me because of what you said is companies and owners and leaders who are under tremendous stress and pressure right now. They're going to hear those things and they're going to want to believe it. But yet we're not just letting things marinate long enough to really see, is this bullshit or not?
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair?
That's absolutely fair.
For sure.
So the interesting thing about this is, how do I say this? We are in business. We're supposed to be about the customer, right? And so everything that we do is supposed to be geared toward bringing value to the customer when it comes to this. But now, if we're going to get into value discussions, it's a matter of we're taking AI and all of its value propositions and just saying that's reality when we don't even know what the customer wants yet. And that's one of the tectonic shifts that's going to start happening here. Okay, is if you look at the way that sales works, the mechanics of it. Marketing is designed to really kind of get the company on the map so that people understand that it's there, and it promotes it, and it does lead generation. It moves the demand curve to the right. That's the whole purpose of marketing. And then sales picks it up, and then it customizes the messaging that marketing has done, which is typically a one-to-many or a one-to-few, down to a one-to-one, because people are the ones that make the decisions inside the paychecks. They aren't, and the contracts. They aren't. A persona doesn't sign anything. A business doesn't sign anything, and an industry certainly doesn't sign anything. A person does. Now, what's going to wind up happening is once we get AI into the buyer's world, this is going to turn into something that's almost like the programmed supply chain. That type of fulfillment that everybody's using right now, right? I have a hole here. I need to fill it. Find the next vendor that actually is able to fill it. Do it. Get it into the supply chain so it gets here at the right time. And all of that, which is your lower paid jobs, is going to be automated. Anything that can be automated in business will be. Anything that can be commoditized will be rapidly. Because what it does is it cuts the bottom line. It very, very quickly. But the problem is that, like I said, once buyers start figuring this out, you're going to wind up having an AI bot on the buyer's side talking to the AI bot on the seller side. People are just going to take a very casual look at it because it's all going to be programmatic. And now the onus on revenue generation is going to shift from sales over to marketing. And the problem is that marketing is geared toward one-to-many, and they don't really understand one-to-one.
Right.
Plus, how are they going to have a one-to-one conversation when the buyers would prefer to actually work inside of a marketplace without any reps being present? That's the preference these days, as both Gartner and Forrester have pointed out. So we're running into this situation where suddenly we're not going to be able to have those one-on-one discussions to find out what the person actually values, the one that's actually signing the paychecks. So it's just going to be an entirely different selling and buying scenario here moving forward.
Can I back up just a minute? Because I think you mentioned that you're not a Luddite, and which I totally agree with. But you said you use AI, or you feel that AI has potential or there's value to it. Maybe I missed it. Is there a specific thing you're using it for now that you can share with us that you feel that there's value to it at this? Because we're kind of talking, and I definitely want to talk about the future, but I just at the moment, is there something you're using it for?
Yeah, I use it, well, whether it's by osmosis or by direction. I have Grammarly turned on all the time. Grammarly is nothing but an AI bot that actually looks and sees what it is that you're doing, right? I don't necessarily use it to rewrite anything.
I don't.
Yeah, Grammarly.
I'm sorry.
Grammarly.
So,
Grammarly. Yeah,
Grammarly.
You know about Grammarly.
And Grammarly. I heard Grammarly, and I was like, "What is this?" But Grammarly. Yes. Sorry, that's my fault.
Yeah, no worries.
Daniel doesn't speak
so
Texan.
what I use it for.
Daniel doesn't speak Texan.
He's from Boston. He told me. I didn't know he's from Boston.
I'll put some y'alls in there or something like that. But I'm from Boston too, so I can drop my R's if you really want me to. So what I use it for directly is mainly research. So I'll say, give me a list of the top 10 things that might be influencing this type of persona these days. And so I'll go in there, it'll throw up a list of things, and I look at it and say, okay, does that make sense or doesn't it make sense? Is it up to date enough? And that's another problem we're going to run into with AI is, is the brain trained to current events or not? And sometimes, when they're not up to date that way, you're not getting the most current events. So you also have to go into your Google searches after you do the Chat GPT stuff to find out whether or not the information is actually valid and up to date. So those are some of the things that I use it for.
Okay. And there's definitely ways to use even without needing to do those Google searches, having a company sort of AI IQ or something like that as a knowledge base, or an AIQ if you want to shorten it. And I think that sometimes we look at what's going on LinkedIn and we're like, this is what the world is doing. And because I don't want to say it's an echo chamber, but there is definitely a lot of, we feel like everyone already knows about AI. All the companies are already using it. I'm falling behind. But when you get outside of it, outside of LinkedIn, online, you talk to people in the real world, it's still the majority of people don't know about it or don't know how to implement it. So I think there is this big chasm between what we're talking about, which is people are saying it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's huge, it's big. And then you go to this other group of people and they don't even know about it. So I do think there's a little bit of that echo chamber here where we think it's being used, probably overused, where some people don't even use it, or maybe they're scared. They don't know how to get into it and get started. I don't know if you guys think that's accurate.
I think that you have to be careful with it because it's a time vampire. When you start going into AI and you start learning about it, there is just so much to learn. And any amount of time that you spend doing one thing is, times a zero-sum game. So if you're spending it learning about AI, you're not spending it learning about something else, right?
Sure.
And so right now there's a huge shift toward people just spending an inordinate amount of time just trying to learn about AI and how to leverage it. Eventually, after they figure it out and they start to become more comfortable with it, they'll be able to refocus themselves on what it is that their core competencies. But right now, they're still trying to figure out what AI is and how to actually leverage it.
For sure. I'm seeing that personally, that you can get really in rabbit holes, and fortunately, that's what I do for work. So it's when I'm getting in a rabbit hole, it just means I'm learning. But if it isn't part of your core competencies, if it's not your day to day, it can become overwhelming and feeling like it's a lot to take on your own without help.
Yeah. But the impact though on sales is going to be really remarkable. My prediction, honestly, is that in the first 3 to 5 years, or in the next 3 to 5 years, I think that the top of the funnel is going to be entirely automated. I think that SDR, BDR world is going to be like Blockbuster. I think that most of that stuff where it's highly inefficient and what they do, only 2 to 5% of your TAM is actually in market in buying mode at any one particular time. So that's the type of thing that is ripe for AI to take over and do. But here's the problem with this. When it comes to how people learn how to sell, they start off as an SDR, BDR kind of thing, and they kind of get their alligator skin, and they figure out how to talk to people and how to have those kinds of discussions. Once you start having AI pull those discussions away from the human aspect, and they start having all these automated things where it just figures out BANT from one company to another to figure out, okay, let's just go ahead and buy this programmatically. Now what you have is a situation where there's no training ground for these new sellers that are coming up. Sellers themselves are being pulled in later and later and later into the deals, like 60, 70, 80% of the way through a deal. And so now the sellers themselves aren't necessarily trying to add something new. They're trying to really just validate what the customer has already figured out, by either using AI to figure out what their problems are or using Google search or something like that. So now we're in this situation where the OG, of those of us that have actually been selling for a while and understand complex sales and how to have conversations, are starting to attrite out of the system. But there's nobody coming up behind it because technology is taking over those human conversations. So how do we fix that problem? Because it's going to leave this gap. And that's just one of the things that, when I just look at my crystal ball, it's as cloudy as anybody else's, by the way. But when I look at my crystal ball, that's one of the things that I think is actually going to be happening in the not too distant future here. You're going to have a real paucity of talent in the whole sales industry.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So first of all, we're talking about industries where the SDR has been prevalent, right? And I think, and if you look at the data and the trends right now, the SDR model is proven to be not effective, not cost effective. I spoke with another sales leader today who said something along the lines of, when they looked at their data, their SDR leads had a 97% close loss rate. Right. That's the world where companies were spending $20 to make $1, but it was okay of a model because these were a lot of the funded companies. But as we get back into what I call traditional companies, getting into manufacturing, getting into distribution, traditional sales, where they have full cycle AEs, hopefully they're not moving into these models where they're losing that ability to train people from day one. Because when they bring in full cycle AEs, they train them from the very beginning to the very end because they are a full cycle AE. I'm really curious about this belief that a buyer's AI is going to be speaking to a seller's AI to determine if there's a need. And what that, if that happens, and I'm sure it will, it's kind of like when my view of the SDR model was, and you said that at any given time, there's only 2 to 5% of your market that's currently in market, which means that's only 2 to 5% of the AIs are out there, meaning the buyer's AI is not even turned on for a long time because they're not in market. It's when they're in market that they turn on. There's still that big opportunity where I think most companies missed over the last 5 years-ish, which is building relationships so that a human is introducing another human to an opportunity or to something new in a human way, where it's not, do you want a demo? Do you want a demo? Do you want a demo? And I think that's still a big I mean, I think that's what we've learned from the SDR model is that it didn't work well because you were only trying to speak to the 2 to 5% that are currently in market, which means that most of them were still out there. If you approached them as a human being and had a conversation, there was opportunity.
Mhm.
Is that an applicable analogy from SDR to this AI to AI buyer to AI seller model that you're scared of?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is why I love fist bumps, for example, because it really forces us to have those relationship building types of conversations. My concern is that marketing isn't great at that. Okay,
Oh,
I mean, sellers are better at it than marketing is. So that's for darn
amen.
sure. But the sellers themselves, the sellers aren't going to have. They're starting to get pushed into the background. And so it's one of those deals where you need to farm, not hunt. Of course, the balance of farming and hunting has to do with how much financial runway you have when you're starting to run out of financial runway. But if you have financial runway, you can farm all day long and then finally get just a nice steady flow going, right? So it's going to be the changes coming up here are just so incredible, Brandon. When you just think about
Yeah.
what's actually about to happen.
Yeah. Well, I think we got a couple things here I want to pull up. First, I'm going to bring up Nolan. Thank you for joining us, Nolan. Nolan's a new friend of mine online out of South Africa. I cannot stand dealing with machine for support or sales chats. I mean, how many people out there agree with that? Like, I get tired of dealing with that. Like I'm the guy on the phone that's going operator, 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 and then I look up and I go, oh my gosh, I became that old guy.
Mhm.
But I get tired of having to navigate my way through everything when I want help.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
I would just add to that, I cannot stand dealing with bad support or sales chats. Like I think that's really it's kind of like with anything with we could say AI or automation. It's like when it's good and you can do it with AI, it's way better. Like if I want support on a technical issue or with my bank or whatever, if I could just click and it would actually give me the correct responses on what I'm looking for. But the problem is it keeps giving me these stupid, like it doesn't understand what I want, and then I'm screaming into the phone like support, support, support till it finally does it. But if it would do it right, like there's one time, transparency. I had an issue and I didn't get the credit card done on time, the payment done on time, so I had like this $29 late fee. And I call into the phone or I call into the bank and it said late fee. I hit it and then it said, okay, it's been cleared, and I hung up. But if I had to, I mean, it was all automated and it gave me back my late fee. And I prefer that to someone will be with you in 8 minutes and I'm sitting there waiting and then I tell them and I get the same result. If I can be done in 2 minutes versus 8, that's all I care about. It's just time. I don't care who's doing it for me.
You see,
Personally.
you're hitting on exactly what the trend is right now, Daniel, which is customer experience is now starting to override even customer service, right?
Everything.
It's yeah, so it's no longer about having the best product because there are so many Me Too players out there. There are so many slight variations, and the variations are so minimal that it only matters to a very small portion of your target market. So what is coming down to is customers are differentiating vendors based upon their ability to provide a good customer experience. And that's how they're doing it. But so whether they can do that upfront pre-sale or whether it's done on the back end post-sale through customer success, either way, it's still going to that is the new landscape moving forward. How do you improve the customer experience? And can AI do that correctly? And to your point, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So
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 Bob,
people are still a little leery about it.
So, Bob, I think Billy Bob and I are both think that your new podcast, the OG's Crystal Ball, your first episode should be all about customer experience. What do you think of that?
Let's do
There
it.
you go. Billy Bob, thanks for the comment. Appreciate that.
And I do think that sometimes
Absolutely.
when we talk about AI, it goes right to the customer or the end user and how it's used in that way, whether it's content creation or we're talking about support now. But it was interesting that you brought up your usage of it to create, I believe you said, some sort of report or internal tools. And I think that's the big value right now, is using it in that way internally. Is, I mean, the content creation and the generative stuff there, that's cool. And there's stuff you can do there. And there's value to it. But I think those internal pieces, those reports that the customer's never even going to see, it just makes your team better. I think that's kind of the big things that can be done right now, and it's not down the road. Personally. Sorry, you look like you're about to say something, Brandon. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was waiting. I think there is a little bit of a lag. I think Bob was saying earlier there's a little bit of lag, so forgive us if we're a little bit off. So Bob, as we come into the second part of the, hitting this half-hour mark here and wrapping up, what you said some really big things, and they are tectonic shifts, and not that we can solve all the problems right away, but I'm curious if they came to you and said all the typical stuff that we're hearing on data, hey, our cold outreach motions aren't working the way they used to, the MQLs aren't working the way they used to. You mentioned about marketing not knowing how to have a conversation, and that is like, we should just have a whole show on that. But the MQLs aren't working. Really, the MQL to SQL handoff is blown up and destroyed. Maybe we tried the SDR, we did the SDR model, and that's not working. And now we got this new shiny tool called AI. What's your advice? I know it's take time to marinate, but after they marinate a little, and you've been marinating on this a little, how would you lead a company? How would you lead a sales leader in taking these next steps for 2024, or even planning for 2025?
Do what you can to unplug, first of all. What can you do without being plugged into a wall or having a battery attached to you? Focus on that first. Remember that technology is a catalyst. It will amplify and augment whatever already exists. So if your base messaging, your base processes, your culture, everything else like that is actually locked on, and you start applying technology to that, you're going to amplify that at light speed around the world. Perfect. It can be a boon for you. When you start applying technology to a bad system, to where you don't have things aligned correctly, where your messaging is off, where your product isn't quite up to snuff, you're broadcasting that around the world at light speed. So you really need to step back, first of all, and understand what processes, without having technology there, are solid, and make sure you have that down first, and then start layering on the technology. Don't just jump to the latest, biggest, brightest, shiny toy thinking that that's going to be the panacea. It's not.
Yeah.
So you really just need to back up, slow down, like the Navy SEALs say, right? Slow is fast, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, right? Slow, that's what you want to do. Simplify, reduce, be subtractive in what you're trying to do in order to improve rather than additive, and yourself getting ahead a lot faster.
Wow. That's cool. Daniel, do you have some questions for Bob? We're only 5 minutes.
I probably not do. So, I mean, I'm learning a lot from you guys and all these abbreviations and what all that means. So, no, I mean, I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's interesting because, like I said, a lot of times we're talking to people that are very AI is the future in every single way, and it's perfect and great, and you should just jump on board. But I really like what you just said about taking your time, whether it means doing the research, finding a partner that can help you if that's the right fit for your company, and kind of get some education before you jump right in and start just see what sticks sort of concepts.
Yeah. Hey, I've got a bunch more questions, Bob. I think would you come back and let's go a bit deeper? Because I mean, you've said some really interesting things that I think are conversations that we need to keep fleshing out. And there's companies out there sitting there with these things. I mean, again, I had 2 conversations this morning with CEOs that all of these were topics. MQLs, I can't rely on them. They're not good. Here's my data. SDR model, we got rid of all of them. It was a waste of money. My AEs
Yep.
and my current bag of tricks that I know, those motions aren't working. Like I'm giving it my best and I'm successful. I've been in this role for 30, I've been in sales 30 years, 35 years, whatever. And what I know isn't working. And then I got this AI thing on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to make decisions and I need to make them fast, but I'm scared and I don't know what. And then there's LinkedIn, because I've been beating the LinkedIn drum for, good 4 years plus now.
Yeah.
And sitting around, honestly, a couple of years ago, even like in 2020 and 2021, there was a big shift in more people coming to LinkedIn, but they're sitting on the outside. I'm like, how are people not taking this more serious for relationship building?
Mm-hmm.
And what I learned is they had to go use the stupid automation tools first, because they bought into the easy button. And now they're taking a step and looking at that. So we've got MQLs aren't working, SDRs didn't work. Our bag of tricks that we know in relationship building offline aren't totally working. We got this AI thing, we got this LinkedIn thing, and there's the Bob Brittons out there sitting as the OGs going, just slow down. Like there's a lot going on there that I think needs to keep being unpacked. So that's a long way of saying, Bob, will you come back and talk more with us?
I'm happy to. I mean, there's too much to unpack in a half hour. We can hit a little bit of the surface, but that's about it. We just need to have deeper conversations.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to move our show to an hour, and just people that can do it, and those that want to watch the recording later, because it seems like just as we start getting momentum, we run out of time.
We start with those long stories. That's the problem. No, I'm kidding. We've been around. That was me. I asked.
That was a shot at me.
That was
wasn't
me.
it?
I asked the question because I'm learning all these stories this week. I learned about the running of the bulls and everything from you, so I'm just learning stories from you all week. I think we're around 45 minutes, so maybe we can. That's where we're averaging. So, but 45 minutes an hour, that's good. We can talk that long.
Cool. So Bob, then let's keep going a little bit longer, because I want to hear from you. Like, I just want to give you carte blanche for like the next 3 or 4 minutes to talk about the challenges and the opportunities that are currently on the horizon for sales. And you've already touched on customer experience. You've already touched on a lot. Is that a good way to just kind of let you share like what you're thinking and what you know? Because I think you would add tremendous value to people.
The thing about sales is this. It's I have a book coming out this year. It's going to be called The Third Oldest Profession. So it's about sales. And if you think about it,
I'm glad you clarified.
Yeah. So if you think about it, we've been trying to crack the code on sales forever. We're in this constant state of deconstruction, trying to take sales and break it down into its parts, parts. We're being scientists about sales. But really, you learn more about sales by reading a psychology book than you are about a sales book. The mechanics don't really influence people to make a decision one way or the other. It's the relationship that you have with people that's going to cause them to do that. And so if we unwind the clock a little bit and start to understand basic concepts such as storytelling, what value really means, things along those lines, you're really, really going to be able to sell better. The other thing is that we're constantly looking for solutions in sales, but sales is a complex problem. Complexity isn't solved, it's managed. Complication can be solved, but you cannot solve for complexity. And so once we start to understand the difference there and understand that we're never going to be at a position where we're in a constant state of whack-a-mole when it comes to sales, right? We have to continuously find the problems that are popping up and bat them down. That's complexity. And so we have to get rid of this mindset of well, let me just solve this. No, there's no solving it. There's managing it, because then the problem is going to morph on you. You have a moving target that you're trying to hit. You don't do that by actually trying to solve it. The other thing has to do with customer centricity. Really, I see so many companies out there that are trying to say, we are customer centric. We are customer centric. And give me 10 minutes with them and I'll prove to them that they're not.
Right.
I'll just prove it to them. I have a little test that I do with them. So it's one of those things where you're either focusing on the customer or you're focusing on the metrics and the numbers and the revenue. Which is it? Because you can't do both. Which comes first? This is a chicken and egg kind of thing. So if you have to focus on the customer first, not the money. The money will come, but too many companies focus on the money first.
Yeah. Yeah. You said something, remind me, and it was, I believe it was in 1989, maybe 90. I went to a small college called Claremont McKenna in Southern California, and Colbert, Kravis, and Roberts from KKR. If anyone knows KKR, the big leverage buyout, now they've expanded to many things, but they were all alums. And Henry Kravis was speaking at a dinner one night, small, intimate dinner, maybe 50, 60 people in the room. And I got to be there. And one of the questions was asking him about what undergrads should be thinking about. And he said, every year we hire MBAs from the best MBA schools in the world, and they're bright and they're brilliant, but they get in a room and they open their mouths, a lot of them, and they go, bleh, because they don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to work with people. And he said, in undergrad, take psychology and learn how to build relationships with people. And I took that advice and I shifted and I became a psychology and a communication undergrad, knowing I was going to go to grad school. But I think you making that point is, I believe in the first 25 years of the century, we were so enamored with all this tech that we went tech first, people second. And my hope is that companies are learning you can't make that freaking mistake again. And if you do, you're going to go the same route. We can't badger people with cold emails. We can't hit them like we've done this automation on LinkedIn. And I know there's a bunch of companies out there that say, oh yeah, it's so easy and you get all these leads. Bullshit. Like I got an email from someone yesterday that, first of all, they don't know who I am because they sent me a cold email trying to sell me their LinkedIn services. And what they can, oh, we did this for one of our customers and we got them all the da-da. If that's true, if you're really doing that for your customers, you should be doing it for yourself. And you shouldn't be sending me spam cold email because you're telling me how well it works inside LinkedIn. So there's all this stuff that just doesn't make sense, and they forgot the human first. So my hope is that we've gotten all that, tech, and be tech first and go, hey, let's be human first and figure out the tech we need, that we can do it more efficiently, but let's not lose the humanity in the process. Because when we lose the humanity as the focus, we lose.
Yeah.
And I think so many companies are coming to realize that right now. They may have one short term, a little bit here and there, and valuations and whatever. And there's a bunch of people that cashed out with great, big pockets full of money. But the techs that they built aren't lasting because humanity caught up to it and we stopped. There's my little soapbox for the day. Bob.
No, I was just going to say, it reminded me that I sent you that text I got, Brandon, this week it was a cold text from somebody that I guess found me on LinkedIn, and they were trying to invite me to a mastermind. And he actually said that his last customer, he basically helped save their marriage. And I was like, what is this? It was like seriously the creepiest text ever, because I didn't know who he was. And then he tells me he's inviting me. He's like, yeah, one of my customers, their marriage was on the rocks. And after I helped him, he had more time for his wife. And I was like, wow, that is a really inappropriate text message. Tried to be, I guess it was trying to be personal, but maybe it was way over the line. Actually, it's kind of scary what some people are using for these automations. And I would think you would never actually, if you looked at that text, you'd never be like, yeah, I want to send that. It feels like it was some sort of automation. So it's gotten kind of creepy for sure.
Bob, I want to let you kind of wrap us up and bring us around. I'm going to do this because Billy Bob's coming in on your stream. So I think it's a relationship of yours. That's interesting. The more alike computers and people become, the more we will value the difference. That is
100%.
huge. And I think that's what you say a lot. I mean, that's what I hear, maybe not directly like that, but I hear you pushing.
Yeah. We are, you look at the people that are out there that are trying to be all this transhuman stuff, trying to get beyond being human. Why are you trying to do that? That just annoys the hell out of me. What you really want to do is understand that humanity is what this game that we're playing called life is all about. And the way that we help each other, and let's say what a business is. A business is the fact that I can do something better, or I can do something that people like, or that they actually have value in, that I do it a little bit better than some other people. And, we actually are able to add value to each other. That's what a business is all about. And so if we can get to that point with a business where it really is person helping person, where it's helping this other person increase the value of their life, that's what it's all about. It's not about making money. That'll come. But we just need to get the focus alike. Get the alignment correct there in order for things to actually succeed.
That's a great way to end what we were trying to accomplish today. I mean, there are these big tectonic shifts, and it's not just going to impact sales, but it's going to impact the entire business. But it starts with sales because it starts with the customer experience.
Yeah.
So, Bob, where can everyone find you? Where should they find you after the show?
You can send me an email at bob@sesherpas.com. That's for Sales Enablement Sherpas, SE Sherpas. Or you can find me online at salesenablementsherpas.com, or you can use my LinkedIn, which is LinkedIn/in/Britton Robert.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
And for everybody next week, we're going to have Rob Fagan come and join us. And he's doing some interesting stuff with Microsoft partners and working with them on how to build relationships. There we are again, with Microsoft employees as a way of growing their Microsoft partnership business. So that'll be next Friday at 11 o'clock. Daniel, you still here next week, or are you leaving us for Africa?
I'm here next week.
Okay. Yeah. Daniel's the traveler amongst us, Bob.
When a traveler,
I'd like to get back
Bob
to
was telling me before the show, he's lived in like a dozen places. I didn't realize that. It's like Boston and Hawaii, Dallas now.
It's the witness protection program. It moves you around a lot, so.
Well, hey, I think your first episode on the OG's Crystal Ball, you should share all the places you've been.
For sure.
So, all right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. If you have any questions, we'd love to answer them. You want to be on the show, or who should be on the show, we'd love to hear that as well. So until then, we'll see you next Friday, everybody.